if you believe God is talking through you, and I believe God is talking through me, and yet we are coming to a different conclusion, what does that mean? This is encouraging us to think differently, to think outside the box, to recognize that your perspective is not the end-all, be-all answer of all answers. I don't care who said it, where it's written, where you learned it. It's not the end-all, be-all answer. It's not. Because even if you read something somewhere in a book, and you're like, oh, that's the answer, you could be reading it from a perspective that's completely different from somebody else who read the exact same thing. Welcome to the Weekly Transit, your guide to understanding the current planetary and astral alignments. Together, we'll explore how to harness these cosmic frequencies, empowering you to reach your highest potential as you navigate the days ahead. I'm your host, Scott Tajarian. Welcome to the Weekly Transit. This is the week of September 15th to the 21st, where we are covering 12 transits this week, highlighted by Mercury transiting into Libra, Venus transiting into Virgo, and the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo. It is an action-packed, intense week. As if last week wasn't intense enough with the Mercury Cazimi. The tension builds through this week as two planets transit into new signs, and two other planets, the sun and the moon, prepare to transit into a new sign. So it's really 4 planets transiting into new signs this week. When those planets hit that 29th degree, the anaretic degree, it is intense. It's like, I think of shaking up a champagne bottle and then popping off the cork. It's a lot. It's powerful. It's loud. You got to get out of the way. You might hurt yourself with that cork. So there's tension. There's tension building and tension releasing through this week, September 15th to the 22nd, or to the 21st, I should say. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for your presence. I'm grateful to have your ear, your attention, and I really hope and pray that everything that I'm sharing here through this podcast is lifting you and supporting you and empowering you through the week. And of course, if you're curious about any of the transits that I'm talking about here this week and you're looking for personal guidance, then I encourage you to contact me for a reading at theweeklytransit.com. If you're interested in learning about the lunar cycle, which includes this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, you can enroll in my moon cycle classes at theweeklytransit.com. Let's get into the week. Let's begin with the first transit, which is Venus in Leo, sextile Mars in Libra at 25 degrees from Thursday, September 11th, so that's last Thursday, to this Friday, September 19th, with the exact sextile occurring on Monday, September 15th. This is a flowing frequency between the goddess of love, Venus, the feminine planet, in the fixed fire sign, symbolized by the lion, ruled by the sun, the planet of vitality, forming a sextile, a supportive aspect with Mars, the masculine planet, the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, conflict, confidence, courage, authenticity, aligning with Venus's love nature, relationships, the senses, the 5 physical senses. Mars is transiting through Libra, the cardinal air sign, symbolized by the scales representing balance, harmony, equanimity, fairness. in the sign that's ruled by Venus. So Mars is aligning with Venus in the sign that's ruled by Venus. So there's a lot of flow here. It's a really great way to begin the week, even though we're already beginning this at the end of last week. So I'm curious to know if you were feeling this vibe towards the end of last week, if you're feeling this vibe this week, but what this first transit is about, and it really sets the tone for the entire week, but it's about, do you have the courage to open your heart in your relationships? Whether it's a lover, a friend, a business partner, whoever your relationship is, a family member, are you opening your heart? Are you listening and receiving into your heart? There's how many people on planet Earth? Like 7-8 billion people on this planet? Each one with their own unique astrological code. We're all reflecting each other in some way, shape, or form, but none of us are the same. And so this aspect between Venus and Mars is giving us the courage to connect with each other, to open our hearts. The most positive way to connect is through an open heart, where we feel seen and understood by the person that we're connecting with. How have your relationships been recently? Has there been any tension in your relationships? I had a tense exchange with a friend via text message, a couple friends. One friend got really angry at another friend and kind of me, but I was more to the side, and it kind of illuminated stuck energy. And that's a major theme for this week with the solar eclipse in Virgo, which we'll get to later. But Venus in Leo, sextile Mars in Libra. Mars in Libra is giving you the courage to rebalance the scales, to see what's out of balance, to take action in restoring balance, where your relationships may feel out of alignment. But in order to express the need to shift the balance, we have to be open to receiving and giving. Venus in Leo is about opening up and feeling what someone else likes or what they dislike. Because just because I like something doesn't mean that you have to like what I like. I feel like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves in our relationships in life, where, well, if I like this, then my partner needs to like this. My friend needs to like this. If I think this way, then they need to think this way. If this is my point of view, then that needs to be their point of view. No, it doesn't. That's like a tomato saying to an orange, I need to change that orange into a tomato. No. You're a tomato, they're an orange. Leave it be. There's nothing wrong with you being a tomato, and there's nothing wrong with them being an orange. Certain food groups mix well with each other, some don't. It's okay. So the Venus in Leo sextile Mars in Libra throughout the week is saying, open your heart. Share what you like, what you don't like. Be open to receiving what the people around you like and don't like as well. See if there's the ability to create balance and harmony within these relationships. And if not, walk away in peace. You don't need to engage. Leave each other be. But hopefully, through the positivity of this aspect, you'll find common ground where you can support one another and balance each other. The second transit of the week also includes Venus in Leo, forming a trine, another supportive aspect with Chiron retrograde in Aries. This is at 26 degrees. This is occurring from Sunday, September 14th, to Thursday, September 18th, with the exact trine occurring Tuesday, September 16th. So playing off the first transit with Venus and Mars, as we are encouraging ourselves, and okay, let me scroll it back here, because the second transit should also be coupled with the third transit this week. The second and third transits are in tandem, because we talked about the first transit, Venus sextile Mars, and then the second transit, Venus trine Chiron, but the third transit is Mars in Libra, opposing Chiron retrograde in Aries, which occurs from Saturday to Friday, September 13th to the 19th, but the trine occurs the exact same day as Venus and Leo, or the opposition between Mars and Chiron occurs the exact same day as Venus trine Chiron, which is Tuesday, September 16th, Tur, which is the Old Norse god associated with the Roman god Mars. So on the day of Mars, Martes, Marta, Mars. On the day of Mars, Mars is aligning with Chiron in Aries, the sign that's ruled by Mars. As Mars transits through Libra, the sign that's ruled by Venus, and Venus in Leo also aligns with Chiron. You see the synastry here, how they're connecting. So we begin the week with opening our hearts in order to take action, to maintain or reestablish balance. Balance that works for both sides, not just yours, not just theirs, both sides. Feel good. It's a win-win. But as that happens, Venus aligning with Chiron and Mars opposing Chiron, there's stimulation to insecurity, fears. When Chiron is in Aries, as it has been for the last 6-7 years, a lot occurs that creates fear and insecurity. So that we can face our fears and insecurities, so that we can run towards our fears and insecurities and become more confident, more authentic. It's hard to be open if you're fearful. It's hard to be loving if you're closed. These transits between Venus, Mars, and Chiron are opening us up. And in order to open ourselves up, we also have to face our fears and insecurities. So that opposition between Mars and Chiron is really sort of aggravating the fears and insecurities that come up within our relationships. In what ways are you attempting to control the people in your life? It's fine if you feel like things are unfair. Totally fine. But what happens if the other side thinks that they are fair? That you're getting what you should get and they're getting what they should get, but you feel like that's out of balance. Then what do you do? That creates the conflict. At that point, we have to boil it down to love. And what do we love? What do I love? What do you love? Let's talk about what I love and what you love. And let's figure out how that fits on both sides of the scales. And let's be clear and honest about what I love and how what I love threatens what you love, and what you love, how what you love threatens what I love. That's where the fear and insecurity comes from. We have to acknowledge our fears and insecurities in order to create peace. I don't know how we can balance the scales if you haven't heard what I'm afraid of, and if I haven't heard what you're afraid of. It's through exchanging those fears, by being authentic and courageous, because it's not easy to admit that you're afraid. But in my personal experience, like especially within my marriage with my wife, whenever I tell her I'm afraid of something, she softens. And I think she softens because she didn't realize I was afraid. But really, that's where the anger comes from. That's where the conflict comes from. Fear. So what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of in life? What are you afraid of in your relationships? Can you acknowledge those fears to the ones that you love the most? How would they receive that information? Would they soften, become supportive, and then in turn acknowledge the fears that they have? Then maybe you realize you're both afraid of the same thing. And through that common acknowledgement of fear, you're actually able to come together in love. And realizing that you're not that different. Even through the differences. At the core, you both want love. So one of the key themes of the week is to pay attention to where conflict is coming up, because conflict is showing you fear. Investigate that fear, acknowledge the fear. And in acknowledging that fear and opening your heart, find the love for yourself and for the ones that you're connecting to. The fourth transit of the week is supporting us in opening up the dialogue and finding the love. As Mercury in Virgo opposes Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Now this is a tense aspect, but it is supporting us in our communication. This aspect is occurring from September 15th to the 18th, Monday to Thursday, with the exact opposition occurring on Wednesday, September 17th. Mercury is the messenger of the gods, guide of souls to the underworld, the planet of consciousness, communication, and coordination, the god of merchants and thieves. Transiting through the sign that it rules, the mutable earth sign symbolized by the Virgin, Virgo, forming an opposition to Saturn, the god of wealth and time, the planet of restriction, responsibility, hard work, achievement, and authority, transiting retrograde through the mutable water sign symbolized by the fish, Pisces. Now, yes, this is a tense aspect, but yes, it is supporting us. It's helping us get into the nitty-gritty details of what's going on beneath the surface of our mind. Because when you're thinking about opening your heart and receiving love, acknowledging fear, facing the conflicts that are existing in your relationships in order to create the balance that you desire that will bring you peace, you need to be clear about what's going on beneath the surface of your mind. Because the unconscious is what creates your reality. And with Mercury, the planet of the conscious, in the Earth sign, which is associated or is ruled by the conscious, because Mercury rules Virgo, Virgo is mutable Earth, is bringing greater awareness to our reality, and the opposition to Saturn, another planet that is associated with reality, the god of wealth and time. The reality that time is limited, it's not infinite. In Pisces, the sign of the unconscious, it's bringing what may be buried beneath the surface into our waking reality, so that we can take responsibility for these thoughts that are creating fear, these thoughts that are contributing to the conflict. These thoughts are often centered around guilt, shame, regret, blame. When you are wallowing in the four corners of a chaotic psyche, guilt, shame, regret, blame, there's no place to be but fearful. Because the fear is stemming from your previous reality that you did something that caused your self-harm or caused somebody else harm. And you don't want to do that or experience that again. But the only way to change the nightmare into a fantasy is to acknowledge the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame with forgiveness. That you did not come to this planet as an omnipotent God. You are a part of God, and you now embody this physical manifestation of your soul that's meant to experience all aspects of life. Love, fear, and everything that stems from those two frequencies. And in knowing that, if you've done something that has harmed yourself or others, as we all have, you must forgive yourself so you can integrate those thought patterns and memories with understanding, forgiveness, and love. And from there, the universe signals that, or God, whatever higher power you believe in, is signaled that you are ready for the next assignment. and the nightmare becomes a fantasy. Mercury is assisting with this because it's bringing greater conscious awareness to the unconscious, which is already being brought to reality by Saturn. It may be difficult. It may be difficult to be conscious of what is occurring. But that's the point. If it was serene and nice and easy, then you might ignore it. It's got to be a little uncomfortable because that's going to support you in acknowledging that something needs to shift within you. And then the planets shift. Because the fifth transit of the week, Mercury, transits into Libra, where it will transit from September 18th, Thursday, to October 6th. So it's a quick trip through the signs symbolized by the scales, the cardinal air sign, Libra, the sign of relationships. This is helping bring an eloquency to the way that you're communicating, where you're able to really see the other side of the equation. You're able to understand how you're not the only one who has suffered. You're not the only one who feels pain. We all do. We all feel pain. We all suffer. And when we can recognize that within each other, it might help us soften. It might perhaps encourage peace. Libra is the diplomat. Libra has the ability to see what's occurring on both sides of the table. It's able to hear more than one perspective and to maintain a neutral perspective in between. Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying over there, and that totally makes sense. Absolutely. But I hear what they're saying over here, and that makes sense for them too. How can we make this work together? How can we find the love between these two sides of the table? Libra rules the kidneys. And the kidneys are that part of the body that purifies what cleanses the blood. So isn't it interesting? Because when you think of Libra and being the diplomat, it's all about coming into tense situations and creating peace and harmony so there's no bad blood. So when Mercury transits through Libra, we're hopefully a little more measured in the way that we communicate with one another. Now, on the flip side of the coin, when that Libra energy feels like the scales are out of balance, they are relentless in correcting what they feel is out of balance. But the very nature of that thought is out of balance because both sides could look at it that way. Both sides could see how the other side is done wrong or been unfair. Fairness comes through both sides acknowledging their part. And that's the focus with Mercury in Libra. Now, the previous dates that Mercury has transited through Libra, just to give you some insight, If you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me say this many times, but check back through your phone, your photos, your social media posts, text messages, emails, if you've held on to them that long. What was occurring in your life between September 26th and October 13th, 2024, October 4th to the 21st, 2023, August 25th to September 23rd, 2022, October 10th to the 29th, 2022, and August 29th to November 5th, 2021. Those are the last few times that Mercury has transited through Libra, as it will be from September 18th to October 6th. Of course, if you were born with key astrological points or planets in Cancer or Capricorn, then this 2.5 week period may create some tension for you with regards to communication and coordination. So slow down, take your time, be mindful of where Mercury is in relation to whatever planets you have in Cancer or Capricorn, because when that square occurs, there might be tension with communication, which is helping you recognize where there may be an imbalance and where you may need to do a little more listening or initiating conversations that are going to help rebalance the scales for the sake of peace, harmony, and fairness for both sides. Now, as Mercury transits into Libra, it forms 3 aspects immediately. So the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th transits. The 6th transit, the 7th transit, the 8th transit. Each of these transits are all occurring together with Mercury, as Mercury aligns in opposition to Neptune retrograde in Aries, aligns in a trine with Uranus retrograde in Gemini, and another trine with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. These aspects are occurring on Thursday and Friday. The exact aspects happen right when Mercury transits into Libra on Thursday, September 18th. So it's like, boom, wow, lot happening here. I don't know exactly what's happening here, but it's a lot. And I'm going to try to piece it together for you. Now, let's just think about this. So Mercury in Libra is opposing Neptune retrograde in Aries. Well, Neptune is the unconscious. It's the god of fresh water and the sea. What's going on in the sea? We don't know. My God, there's more ocean on Earth than there is Earth. We don't know half of what's going on in the ocean. So it's the unconscious. That's why Neptune's the planet of illusion, confusion, deception, compassion, intuition. Transiting retrograde through Aries. This is creating a sense of idealism, self-aggrandized idealism. I know that I'm right because it's what I believe. And I'm talking to God, and this is what God is telling me. Okay, great. So many people can say that. It's like 17 different instruments playing the same song. It sounds a little different through each instrument. It might be the same song, but it's a different sound. The challenge here is, and especially with the negotiating aspect or part, is that Mercury in Libra is wanting to be diplomatic and create balance and peace, but at the same time Neptune opposing it from Aries, the whole trying to figure out peace might be completely delusional, because the people that are on either side of the table are so maybe stuck in their own ideology of being right. Because this is what I have faith in and this is what I know. And it's been validated by all the other people that agree with me. But yet there's all these other people on the other side of the table that say the exact same thing. Well, I know that God's talking to me too. And all these other people agree with me. So who's right? I don't know. It's confusing. So we got to wade through this confusion here. And hopefully Thursday and Friday are days that are going to help us think a little deeper. And this is also playing upon the previous aspect that we were talking about with Mercury in Virgo opposing Saturn retrograde in Pisces, because Pisces is a sign that is a sign that's ruled by Neptune. Now Mercury is opposing Neptune. At the same time, Mercury forming a trine with Uranus retrograde in Gemini. This is supporting us here in saying, okay, well, if you believe God is talking through you, and I believe God is talking through me, and yet we are coming to a different conclusion, what does that mean? This is encouraging us to think differently, to think outside the box, to recognize that your perspective is not the end-all, be-all answer of all answers. I don't care who said it, where it's written, where you learned it. It's not the end-all, be-all answer. It's not. Because even if you read something somewhere in a book, and you're like, oh, that's the answer, you could be reading it from a perspective that's completely different from somebody else who read the exact same thing. There are so many variables here. So the key to this transit, because Uranus is the primordial sky god, the planet of revolution, rebellion, innovation, independence, and the unexpected, transiting retrograde through the mutable air sign symbolized by the twins and ruled by Mercury. So Mercury in Libra is aligning with Uranus in Gemini, which Mercury rules. So again, there's a lot of these aspects this week where you have one planet aligning with another planet that's in the sign that the other planet rules. Like Mercury aligning with Uranus in Gemini, which Mercury rules. Or earlier in the week, how Mars is in Libra aligning with Venus, which Venus rules Libra. Or Mars opposing Chiron in Aries, where Mars rules Aries. So this is the third transit of the week where we have a planet that is aligning with another planet in the sign that the first planet rules. But Gemini is about communication. Uranus is about seeing things differently. So this is why we need to think outside the box. We got to think differently in terms of these negotiations. It's not about this side's right, that side's wrong, or this side did this right and that side needs to do this better, or whatever it is. We need to come at it from a different perspective, and we need to be radically different in how we're listening to others. I've really had a tough time, since Mercury transited into Gemini. I don't want to say I've had a tough time. It's been a good time. I'll say that. But there's been instances where the toughness has come with, I'm starting to recognize where it's like, I need to do a better job of listening here. I hear myself trying to impose my views on someone else. That's what happened. Some of that is what was occurring with this text exchange. And I eventually talked to the friend on the phone, and, I had really forced myself to listen because I wanted to kind of tee off on him on the way that he was behaving on this text. But at the same time, he was upset with the way that I was behaving and this other friend who he was even more upset at. So, I had to listen. I wished he would have listened to me a little better than I felt like he did. But, yeah. But I felt like I was listening pretty good. But there were moments in the conversation where I was like, I'm not listening. I just want to say my part. Shut up your inside mind, Scott, and try to listen to this other voice. That's the challenge right now. Mercury in Libra is also aligning with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. This is another supportive aspect. Our minds are going through a transformation, and that transformation is transforming society, the community, any group, club, or organization that you're a part of. Are the group, clubs, or organizations that you're a part of, are they changing? Are you changing within those groups? Is your thought process changing? So through the confusion of Mercury opposing Neptune in Aries, retrograde in Aries, Mercury in Libra forming a trine with Uranus retrograde in Gemini is saying, okay, through that confusion, I need to listen more. I need to be more aware. I need to be willing to hear things differently. I need to radically change the way that I'm thinking or listening. And then you bring that third aspect with Mercury in Libra, trine, Pluto retrograde in Gemini, and Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, and that's how society changes. Because if we recognize that we're confused, if we realize that we need to be better listeners, at that point we're going to change society. Because right now it kind of feels like we're in a society where everybody has all the answers, and yet nothing's working. If we had all the answers, well, if everyone just believed like I believe, then the world would be a perfect place. Yeah, that's not reality. The reality is we need to stay open. That there's more to learn on this earth than can be digested in one lifetime. Or even multiple lifetimes. Speaking of digestion, the 9th transit of the week, Venus transits into Virgo, the sign that rules the intestines. So, the goddess of love in the critical, analytical, perfectionist sign of the Virgin. From Friday, which is named for Frigg. Frigg is the Old Norse god associated with the Roman god Venus. Venice, for my Spanish-speaking friends. This is the day of Venus. So Venus transits into Virgo on the day of Venus, Friday, September 19th, where it will transit until October 13th. So one day after Mercury transits into the sign that's ruled by Venus, Venus transits into the sign that's ruled by Mercury. I love the beauty of this astrology. It's poetic. This is going to bring a very critical, analytical, sensory awareness to how we relate to others. As all the dust is getting kicked up with these conversations and the tension and needing to rebalance the scales, we're going to start to notice things about people. Yeah, I don't like that person over there. Why don't you like them? I don't know. I don't like the way their hair looks. I don't like their face. I don't like their clothes. I don't like the sound of their voice. It could be just a small thing, but I don't like them. Yeah, there's something wrong with them. Yeah. But if that's what you're saying about someone else, then internally, that's how you feel about yourself. There's something about yourself that you're having trouble loving. And because of that, you're taking it out on this other person. So the key to Venus and Virgo is to be open to meticulous criticism or analytical thoughts when it comes to your relationships. If you're open to them, maybe they're a little less harsh than if you are resisting them, because they might be hard to ignore. So if it's coming up, if you're seeing it, if it's something you're aware of, it needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed because maybe it's something that is creating stagnation in your relationships. It is slowing you down from your ultimate goal. But something needs to be cleared. It is a part of a relationship, or maybe a relationship in totality, that is asking to be cleared in order to make space for a new relationship or a new aspect of a present relationship that is going to be more beneficial to both people involved, because Virgo ultimately is about service. And if we're not serving our partner, and our partner is not serving us, then that goes back to the imbalance that we are exploring this week, with Mars transiting through Libra and Mercury beginning its transit through Libra. So Venus transits through Virgo September 19th to October 13th. This is pretty much the same period that Mercury is transiting through Libra, September 18th to October 6th. It transits in one day later, stays for a week longer. But for the majority of the period that Venus is transiting through Virgo, Mercury is going to be joining it in Libra. So hopefully these critical conversations that are occurring in our relationships are also a little more balanced, measured, charming, fair-minded, in order to support us in the restructuring of our relationships, because that's what mutable earth is. Mutable earth is Virgo, and mutable earth is mutable, is adaptable, changeable. So we're taking the structure of our relationship and we are reshaping it, remolding it. The last few times that Venus has transited through Virgo, August 4th to the 29th, 2024, October 8th to November 8th, 2023, September 4th to the 29th, 2022, and July 22nd to August 15th, 2021. Again, think back to those dates for clues on what could be in store for you this time around as Venus transits through the mutable earth sign symbolized by the Virgin and ruled by Mercury, Virgo. Check your text messages, your emails, your photographs, your Instagram posts. It's going to give you some clues. Were you born with key astrological points in Gemini or Sagittarius? If so, when Venus transits through Virgo, it's going to square those points and it's going to create tension. And that's everyone if you were born between 1995 and 2008. If you were born between 95 and 2008, then during this period from September 19th to October 13th, at some point during this period, Venus is going to square your Pluto. And Pluto's the god of death, the planet of transformation. So when Venus squares your Pluto, it means that you're potentially going to go through a transformation within your relationship dynamics. Yes, it could be a breakup, or, maybe it just means that you're going through some tense experience with your friend, your lover, your business partner that needs to be transformed in some way. That there is some form of stagnation that's occurring within your relationship that needs to be cleared. So if you're resisting the transformation is going to be difficult, because Pluto's not just death, it's rebirth. And the last thing you want to do if you're giving birth, not that I ever have, but I'm hearing about this through talking to our doctor, is tense up. You want to release, you want to relax, surrender, Surrender to the transformations that are occurring in your relationships. If you're born between 95 and 08, surrender to the transformations that will be occurring within your relationships from September 19th to October 13th. So again, think back to those dates that I gave you earlier, and you can kind of cross-reference. Be like, okay, so Scott said when Venus transits through Virgo, I go through a transformation of my relationships. Well, what happened with regards to my relationships between August 4th and 29th, 2024, October 8th to November 8th, 2023, September 4th to the 29th, 2022, and July 21st to August 15th, 2021? Were there changes happening in your relationships during that period if you were born between 1995 and 2008? I'm curious to know. You might say, no, Scott, everything was normal. I don't know. So, I don't know. I don't claim to know everything here, but this is just my interpretation. So I'm happy to receive your reflection. The 10th transit of the week, the Sun in Virgo opposes Saturn retrograde in Pisces. So just as Mercury formed this same opposition from Monday to Thursday, with the exact happening on Wednesday, September 20th, the Sun forms this same opposition with Saturn from Thursday to Monday, with the exact opposition occurring on Saturn Day, September 20th. So as Mercury pulls out of its opposition with Saturn, the Sun, which yet last week was conjunct with Mercury, was leading Mercury. Now Mercury's leading the Sun. So as Mercury pulls out of its opposition with Saturn, the Sun engages in its opposition with Saturn. This is echoing the transit with Mercury, where instead of the conscious mind opposing the unconscious and taking responsibility for what that means, to become aware of the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame, the Sun is bringing vital light to this area. So you can see it, so you can feel it, so you can feel the radiant intensity of your psychological baggage. Boy, that sounds fun. Yay! I get to experience I get to feel the radiant experience of my psychological baggage. Hooray! And this is perfect, right? Leading right up to the solar eclipse, which we're going to get to in a minute. Again, don't resist. I know it doesn't sound fun for the Sun to radiate its vital light on your psychological baggage, but it's something we're all going to go through. Do your best not to ignore it. Do your best to acknowledge it and to show yourself compassion with whatever comes to light. The 11th transit of the week, Venus transiting into Virgo, forms a square with Uranus retrograde in Gemini. This is a tense aspect, and this is contributing to maybe some of that breakup energy. Because Uranus, the planet of the unexpected, squaring off with the planet of relationships, maybe something unexpected is occurring in your relationships. Whatever is occurring in your relationship that is unexpected, don't resist it. It's meant to give you a new perspective. It's meant to help you see things from a different angle that you never thought of before. This aspect with Venus and Uranus occurs Friday to Sunday, with the exact square occurring the same day as the Sun opposing Saturn, Saturn Day, September 20th. Be open to the shift. Be open to the change. I had my second conversation with the numerologist, Joy Woodward, last week. I'm not sure if by this recording, this is my second conversation with her. I haven't even released the first yet. I might this week, if not next week. She's definitely next on board for my conversations with the weekly transit. I have a second conversation with her, which we get into the highlights of 2026 and what that's going to be all about. So I'll be releasing that later in the year. But just to tease, one of the things that she mentioned, or that we were discussing, was how 2025 is a 9. That's ending a cycle. 2026 is a 1. It's beginning a cycle. And so it's really interesting that at this ending of a cycle where you're meant to be releasing, which is what 2025 is about. It's about releasing the old paradigm and stepping into the new. What are you going to create in 2026? In order to create, you need to release that stagnation that's holding you back in 2025. And so it's interesting that in the same year that is a 9, which is about releasing, there's 2 new moons in Virgo. There's also a Virgo Cazimi. The second of the 2 new moons in Virgo is a solar eclipse at the final degree. So not only is the numerology reflecting release, but so is the astrology. And so the intensity that comes up this week is meant to bring to light, bring to your awareness, whatever it is you've been clinging to so tightly within your intestines that you need to poop out. You need to release it. Let go of it. Eliminate it. And that brings us to the final transit of the week. The new moon solar eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees, the anaretic final degree, which occurs at 12:55 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time on Sunday, September 21st, 2025. As I said earlier in the show, if you're interested in learning how this lunar cycle is going to be affecting you, I encourage you to enroll in my moon cycle classes at theweeklytransit.com. This is going to be the last moon cycle that I am going to be doing the moon cycle classes in this manner. Part of my release is going to be changing the way that I'm doing the moon cycle classes. I'll get more into that when it happens. But, with twins coming, I need to make some changes, and I need to be more discerning about how I'm using my time, how I'm spending my time, so that I can spend the maximum time possible with my babies. So moon cycle classes are going to change after this cycle. So if you're interested in having that really long one-on-one, not one-on-one, but me with the group, with a small group time period, then I encourage you to enroll in these classes. It's a commitment, It's 2 hours for the new moon and then 2 hours for the full moon. And we get deep into your chart and cover where the new moon is happening during the new moon class, and then where the full moon is happening during that class, and where it's happening specifically to you in your chart. It's like a mini reading. So what is this new moon about? This new moon, typically the new moon represents inhale and the full moon exhale. But during the eclipse, it's very intense. You're not really being called to inhale as the moon is blacking out the sun from the Earth's perspective. It's more of a surrender to the energies that need to be released. And when we think back to the first new moon in Virgo, which happened last month, that was about setting your intentions to reorganize your life, to pay attention to what you're putting into your body, how it's affecting your mind, what you're putting into your mind, how it's affecting your body, what you're doing from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, what you need to reorganize and eliminate so that you can create a greater efficiency in your daily life, so that you can be of greater service to the people in your life. And that's what I'm attempting to do, because I'm here at service to you who are listening, to my clients, and to my family. And so I need to reorganize. I've been reorganizing my life. I've been reorganizing my routine. The full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th was about releasing the fantasy, releasing the dream, releasing the nightmare, releasing the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame, releasing the illusion so that you can focus on the reality of how you're really living your life. Now, as we stretch towards this solar eclipse, we deepen the cleaning, we deepen the cleansing. We need to go deeper within ourselves and continue the cleanse. So having set your intentions at the end of August, during the first new moon in Virgo, August 22nd, how have you been able to reorganize your life to today, to now? And what do you need to continue doing? Or how can you go deeper in the reorganization process? What else do you need to release? What is that last thing that you're kind of clinging to? You're like, well, I'm not ready to get rid of that yet. Yeah, get rid of it. It might be time to get rid of it. To do that deep cleansing work so that when we move forward into 2026, because one thing that Joy said that I'll tell you now, because you're not going to hear it on the podcast until November or December, but she said, because October is a 1, she's always really mindful about what she's doing in October. Like, she never goes to the dentist in October, because if she does, then that means she's going to have dental issues for the next year. And so we want to really clear the energy here during this solar eclipse in Virgo, so that when we get to October, we're filling October with whatever it is we want to continue through to 2026, because 2026 is also a 1, which means the energy that you are establishing in 2026 is going to be the frequency that is going to persist for the next 9 years. So, think back what was going on in 2017, and how has that come to fruition now in 2025? What was going on in 2008 that came to fruition in 2016, 2017? Go back further to 1999. What was happening there that came to fruition in 07, 08? What was happening in 1990 that came to fruition in 1999? Or 1998, and how did things change in 1999? So this is a major lunar event energetically, because the opportunity is to help you cleanse whatever is in your life that is holding you back to getting to where you want to go. So be discerning about what you're eliminating and what you are committing to being a part of your daily life. Now, to those of you who are on my email list, who have subscribed and have subscribed to my Substack, I thank you. This week, I have written another essay on this lunar eclipse, the last degree. Solar eclipses at 29 degrees Virgo. You cannot outsource care forever. Eventually, you must take responsibility for yourself. This is the message that echoes across centuries when the sun is eclipsed at the anaretic degree of Virgo. The world is summoned to a final reckoning. Virgo is the maiden of discernment, harvest, and purification. At 29 degrees, she demands closure, the sorting of wheat from chaff, the refinement of systems that have run their course. We cannot endure what must be discarded. Across centuries, solar eclipses at this degree have aligned with moments when institutions consolidated power, when science clashed with dogma, when technology stumbled, and when humanity was forced to confront the tension between management and meaning. Each eclipse echoes the same truth. Care becomes control until we learn to reclaim our own authority. 2006. The algorithm becomes the mother. On September 22nd, 2006, an annular eclipse fell at 29 degrees Virgo. Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth was igniting a new orthodoxy of climate consciousness. And social networks like Facebook and Twitter were beginning to weave a digital web of connection and surveillance. The institutional mother shifted. Salvation came not from the pulpit, but from data, consensus, and algorithms. But Virgo's shadow revealed itself quickly. That same month, Germany's Transrapid Maglev train suffered its first fatal crash, and Hewlett-Packard's chairman resigned in a corporate espionage scandal. Innovation without integrity collapses into chaos. Virgo's demand was clear: refine the system or watch it fail. 1987. The reorganization of identity and the collapse of false systems. September 23, 1987 brought another eclipse to this final Virgo degree. In Nigeria, 2 states were created, reshaping administrative maps. Globally, the first International Day of Sign Languages honored a community long silenced. The United States and Poland agreed to exchange ambassadors after a 4-year break in relations. Virgo's hand was visible in this reorganization of voices, boundaries, and belonging. It was also the season of the harmonic convergence, a new age gathering that proclaimed a planetary shift in consciousness. Yet even as speakers assembled for cosmic alignment, earthly markets convulsed in their own convergence. On October 19th, Black Monday, global stock markets crashed in a single day. The Dow Jones Industrial dropped 22.6%. $500 billion vanished in hours. Automated trading systems designed to mask risk instead amplified panic. The very institutions built to preserve wealth nearly destroyed the entire financial system. Here was Virgo at her most surgical, bureaucratic, and mystic, seeking to redraw both earthly systems and cosmic order, while ruthlessly exposing which structures truly served life and which served only themselves. 1968. Science preserved amid revolution. On September 22, 1968, a total eclipse swept across Asia. In the midst of China's Cultural Revolution, scientists were granted extraordinary protection to observe it, even as intellectual inquiry was being purged elsewhere. In the Soviet Union, too, despite political fractures, resources were mobilized for astronomical study. This eclipse embodied Virgo's archivist impulse. Truth must be recorded, even in chaos. In 2025, as science again collides with ideology, the lesson from 1968 resounds. Preserve what is real, even when the times would erase it. 1634. Institutions strike back. The annular eclipse of September 22, 1634 occurred just weeks after the Catholic Habsburg victory at the Battle of Nordlingen in the 30 Years' War. Protestant resistance was crushed. Institutional authority reasserted its grip. Here we see Virgo's degree manifest as violent consolidation. Institutions claim to nurture, but use that claim to dominate. And yet, the cycle of consolidation and collapse would continue until the Peace of Westphalia reshaped Europe decades later. The echo to today is unmistakable. When systems are threatened, do they protect us or themselves? 1615. Knowledge on trial. The eclipse of September 22nd, 1615, fell as the Catholic Church opened formal investigations into Galileo's defense of heliocentrism. The data showed one truth. The institution clung to another. The result would be Galileo's trial and condemnation. Virgo's question here is piercing. Will we follow the evidence or silence it to preserve control? In 2025, as AI, genetics, and planetary science advance beyond comprehension, this eclipse warns against punishing truth-tellers in the name of orthodoxy. 1262. Empires and bureaucracies. On September 15, 1262, a partial eclipse aligned with the Mongol Empire's consolidation under Kublai Khan and the continued expansion of papal authority in Europe. Systems of governance and administration reached unprecedented scales. Virgo at 29 degrees here expressed itself through ledgers, charts, and bureaucracies. The lesson: when systems centralize, efficiency comes at the cost of freedom. Today, we face the same temptation in planetary governance, financial regulation, and algorithmic oversight. 1243. The papacy consolidates. On September 15, 1243, an annular eclipse fell just months after Innocent IV was elected pope. It was a moment of institutional tightening, belief becoming bureaucracy, the sacred systematized into canon law. And now, in 2025, history echoes. In May, the Catholic Church inaugurated Pope Leo XIV, Robert Francis Prevost, the first American pope, signaling a new chapter of global authority. 8 centuries apart, under the shadow of Virgo's final degree, the papacy once again recalibrates its power. Both moments remind us, do not mistake the spreadsheet for the sacred, nor the regulation for the truth. 2025, the integration point. On September 21st, 2025, the solar eclipse once again strikes 29 degrees Virgo. This is the harvest moment. 21st century institutions are straining under their own weight. Technology advances faster than ethics, and global governance teeters between protection and control. Virgo at the last degree asks us to choose which systems are still serving life and which are only sustaining themselves. What truths must be preserved against ideological winds? Where are we mistaking management for nourishment? Where are we entrusting machines with discernment that belongs to human conscious? This eclipse is not merely about endings, it's about sorting. The illusions of control, the bureaucracies of false care, the systems that have expired. These must fall away. What remains is the purified grain, integrity, truth, and the capacity to care for one another without institutional permission. Conclusion: the pattern of Virgo 29 degrees. From Innocent IV in 1243 to Pope Leo XIV in 2025, from Galileo's trial to AI ethics, from bureaucratic consolidation to systematic collapse. Eclipses at 29 degrees Virgo repeat the same truth. Institutions consolidate, then ossify. Systems organize, then suffocate. Truth is suppressed, then resurrected. Care becomes control until humanity reclaims its own authority. Virgo, at her final degree, does not tolerate delay. She sorts what is ripe from what is rotten. The question is not which system will save us, but whether we have learned, at last, to save ourselves. I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope you feel empowered moving into the week ahead. And I look forward to reconnecting with you next week. Thank you for listening to the weekly transit. If you're curious to learn how these transits or any other transits may be affecting you, or if you're interested in learning more about your astrological code, contact me for a reading at theweeklytransit.com. This episode was produced by me, Scott Tajarian. Music written by Ben Leinbach from Listen Deep by Amber Herzog-Lyman. Wishing you all the best as you ride the planetary waves.